Until fairly recently, farming in Uganda has chiefly been dependent on nature. That is, the natural fertility of the soils. Now, increasingly, farming has become harder as soils lose their fertility, necessitating the use of large amounts of chemicals and pesticides to improve their productivity. The most frequently used chemicals here are referred to as organochemicals. An example are organochlorine pesticides. These are insecticides composed primarily of carbon, hydrogen, and chlorine. They are designed to break down slowly and can remain in the environment long after application and in organisms long after exposure.
Simply because Uganda is an agricultural country, and Uganda is also a comfortable country as far as climate is concerned. So much as we are abundant in crops, we are also abundant in insects. And insects work on crops and degrade them. So you need pesticides in order to improve the quality and quantity of agricultural output, such as crops and livestock. So because we are basically an agricultural country, we have to import enough in order to produce enough. So that's how pesticides become a very large concern.
But these chemicals are very dangerous to the environment. They are difficult to detect and are nearly indestructible when applied in large quantities. The other danger is their propensity to accumulate in the food chain, which can be disruptive to the ecosystem.
But you should also be aware that those tomatoes are pollinated by bees and other insects. Then, when you are reckless or injudicious when you are applying them, you also kill the bees. Now, the bees are very useful in the environment. All the plants are pollinated by bees. So those other people who actually grow bees, keep bees in order to produce honey, start to suffer. And the replacement of crops and plants in the environment starts to suffer because they are not being pollinated properly because you have
Chemicals normally enter the environment as emissions and water as effluent. The emission of nitrogen and sulfur oxides by industries and motor vehicles in huge amounts can cause acid rain. This in turn poisons fish and other aquatic organisms in rivers and lakes and can affect the ability of soil to support plants. Other deadly emissions such as chlorofluorocarbons are responsible for the depletion of the ozone in the stratosphere. This has exposed the Earth to the possibility of serious environmental damage from the ultraviolet radiation. Most of the agriculture chemicals used in Uganda are imported in a ready-for-use format, making their location after use and rate of dispersal hard to trace.
We need sophisticated laboratories that can detect low levels of toxic chemicals, especially pesticides. You know, it is easy for us to sit here in Kampala and think we are safe from a use of a chemical, maybe in Kabale or maybe in Gulu. You are not safe because chemicals move in the environment in ways you may not understand. Chemicals will find you at your table. So you need capability to know how much of a pesticide is present in the banana you are eating, how much is present in the meat you are eating.
Some, like DDT, which controls mosquitoes and malaria, are useful, but can be deadly at the same time. DDT is known to linger for years after its last use.
You can put it on soil now because you've been using it for spraying, and 100 years later, it is still there, doing exactly what it did the first time you used it. So it does it for a much longer time. Then the other problem with them, organochlorines, is that they get stored in the fatty tissues of animals, fish, human beings, birds, and all that kind of thing.
But if chemical-based pesticides are deadly, what is the alternative?
The pyrethroids, like ambush, decamethrin, which can be used effectively and at low values. And these things disappear from the environment within 3-5 days. They are no longer there. They degrade very quickly.
Currently, 2% of Uganda's locally produced chemicals are from alcohol, from molasses, and common salt, with some detergents.
The first thing to do is to have accurate knowledge of what that chemical does to the human being or to the environment. And then know how much of it you need to know to use, and then manage it according to the full life cycle of the chemical. In other words, you manage it from the time of bringing it in, storing it, consuming it, and disposing it.
The problem, though, is the poor disposal methods of runoff from farms and gardens, leading to a buildup of toxic algae in rivers, making them inhabitable to aquatic organisms and unpleasant for humans. The environment watchdog NEMA has a national action plan on sound management of chemicals. The problem is, the subject is still new and authorities are still learning ways of dealing with the chemicals. In the meantime, the best option is to store them like waste from mining, which is toxic, until a solution is found by NEMA. Krekadoda, NTV, Ikotok.